Welcome everybody to this month's Fire Engineering Humpday Hangout with the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. Got our normal cast of characters here, Damon, Anthony, and Brian, myself. And one special guest, we have the superintendent this month of the National Fire Academy, Eric Skabliks. And we're going to talk everything USFA, National Fire Academy, and really dive into what that institution offers to the American Fire Service. And it's pretty impressive as we go through this hour. I think, it's impressive to me that not more people take advantage of the Fire Academy. So we're going to talk about all that stuff and what's going on in the world of fire. But we'd like to thank Fire Engineering again for this opportunity to host this show and to speak about education training in the fire service. FDIC is going to be right around the corner. It's crazy to think that we're only 6 months away. Early registration for FDIC starts Monday, October 7th. So you can get your registrations in. You can get your early hotels. The downtown hotels, as we know, are few and far between. So early registration gives you early access to those hotels as well. So make sure Monday morning you get your computer up and running on the website and you're enrolling and registering for FDIC. So without any further ado, I think we're going to turn it over to the superintendent to talk a little bit about the U.S. Fire Administration. U.S. Fire Administrator Dr. Lori Moore was supposed to be on. Unfortunately, due to just the events of the world, she was unavailable to be here today, but feel very honored to have the superintendent with us. So we'll turn it over to you, sir. Talk about the USFA.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks, everybody. Good to see all of you, and good to be on the program with you. And also good to see Tony Avilo there. I'm a graduate of the Monmouth County Fire Academy many moons ago. So good to see him again. And obviously, Damon and I have been on a number of projects together that we're going to talk about. And Brian, you and I have an affinity for training, as does everybody on this show. So we very much value the partnership we enjoy with ISFSI and have done so for many, many years. So I'll start off with kind of your intro, and thanks for having me. And yes, you are right. Dr. Lori Moore, the U.S. Fire Administrator, was hoping to be with you all today, but she left this morning to go visit our fire and EMS responders on the front line supporting Hurricane Helene efforts. So she's going to be down in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Louisiana, visiting our folks, supporting our local communities that are dealing with the aftermath of the disaster. And obviously, we're keeping all of those folks in our thoughts and prayers. We have seen more than 150 fatalities today, I believe, is the latest count as the news this morning. And sadly, we need to remember that we have lost a number of our fellow firefighters responding to this incident. We have 3 firefighters to date that have died in the line of duty supporting Hurricane Helene efforts. So those obviously are near and dear to us. And also we know that a task force heading in to support efforts in the Southeast was also in a serious motor vehicle crash in Louisiana, and they're receiving assistance. And obviously they're in our thoughts and prayers. So we're making sure that we're doing what we can to support our local communities and our first responders. And Dr. Lori is going to be doing that starting this morning and then heading back in on Sunday. So I wanted to let everybody know that. And then I think her plan is to go back out after the summit that we're going to talk about. So again, she's very active, but she wanted me to share a number of things with all of you and your listeners today. So I've got a list of things I'll kind of go through, and then we'll pivot over to the National Fire Academy. For starters, we'll start off with really where we're at with the U.S. Fire Administration. We're very excited that this is our 50th anniversary. So those of you who have studied the history of the American Fire Service can go back to a document called America Burning. 50 years ago, we had our fire service partners from across the country work with our elected officials and really try to get their arms around our nation's fire issue. We were seeing thousands of civilian fire deaths every year. We were seeing hundreds of firefighter fatalities in the line of duty. We were seeing, many countless firefighter injuries in our country. So how do we wrap our arms around how do we address this issue? So one of the recommendations within America Burning was the creation of a federal agency with a specific focus on America's fire problem. And that resulted in the U.S. Fire Administration being created. If you look at our logo, that logo has 4 stars. Our logo is known as Hotfoot, which is the American Eagle. Above it are the 4 stars, which are our mission as codified in the Fire Prevention and Control Act. And those 4 stars are obviously fire and EMS training, which we're going to talk about. The second one is research, which we'll talk about a little bit. The next one is data. And then the third one is what we used to call fire prevention, which we now call community risk reduction. So over 50 years, we've done a lot of work in partnership with our state, local, tribal, and territorial partners at the local levels that are, if you will, doing the work at the community level. And we're in a much better place. We have reduced the amount of firefighter injuries and deaths. We've changed the way we fight fire. We know more about the way we fight fire. Obviously, ISFSI is a cornerstone partner in that because you obviously have a very big footprint in training the men and women that serve and the men and women that are coming into the fire and EMS service. So you're key partners in that. The other thing is that we have done a lot of work in the codes and standards arena to address our built environments. But what we know now, and we know as instructors, is that we're having fires that are faster. Our building materials are differently, and the way we operate in those environments has to be different from not only a firefighting posture, but also from an incident management posture. So we're doing a lot of work in the codes and standards arena, working with our partners. But sadly, our country is still seeing more than 3,000 civilian fire deaths every year. What we know that's even more sad is that a lot of those are underrepresented populations and people affected by socioeconomic conditions. So we still have a lot of work to do, but we're really proud of what we've done over 50 years with all of you and with the American Fire Service. And again, we know we had a lot of work to do. So transitioning to the U.S. Fire Administration and where we are today, we're excited that we were reauthorized by Congress. So reauthorization, if you will, allows the U.S. Fire Administration to continue its work. That reauthorization also approved the continuation of the Assistance to Firefighter grants. So those are important grants to all of our local communities, not only because of apparatus, because of equipment, because of training, but also because of community risk reduction programs that are funded, SAFER, which provides staffing for our career departments, but also for our recruitment retention efforts on our volunteer efforts, and then also our research and development programs. One of the side notes I'll make on R&D is earlier this month, I joined a number of your members in St. Louis for the National Fire and Firefighters 20th anniversary of the 16 Life Safety Initiatives. So all of those in the training world have seen those. They're probably posted somewhere on our academy walls. But we met to talk about what has happened since the first time we gathered in Tampa to where we are now 20 years later with the initiatives. And those initiatives and the work that the instructors have done both at the state and the local levels has made an impact in how we not only train, but how we work. So we're excited about continuing that work there with NFFF. But again, a lot of things have happened. So reauthorization was discussed as part of that. But what was most telling was to look at the amount of research and the science and data we have now that we didn't have 20 years ago to talk about the work of the fire service. So we talk about the built environment, and obviously ISFSI has done a lot of partnership programs on how we address firefighting in today's built environment. But we also look at programs such as cancer, cardiac, mental health, all those different things that we often take for granted. But we can't take those for granted because those affect the men and women that serve. So a lot of information was shared at the summit that shows how much impact that science and data has had in how we do our business today. And not that it's driving our change, but it's informing the changes that we have to make. So pretty excited about that. So reauthorization is something we're excited about. It allows us to continue to serve all of you, and wanted to cover that with you. The next thing that we just hosted up, and Dr. Lori Moore-Merrill pulled together something that has never been done, working with our staff and with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, but she hosted the World Fire Congress, the first time ever that we have brought together the peers of the U.S. Fire Administrator to a singular meeting. So we had more than 60 countries in attendance, and these were leaders from different countries who, if you will, are the equivalent of the fire administrator in their country. So that included Australia, Great Britain, Canada, but a lot of other countries from South America and far away places. So we gathered for 2 days in Washington, D.C. We had a very good informational session. And as a result of that, we now have communities of practice that are going to address the issues that were identified. The issues here in the U.S. are not that far apart from what's happening across the world. So recruitment and retention is a global issue. Our built environment is a global issue. Our codes and standards, believe it or not, are a global issue. And also how we respond as firefighters is a global issue, because things that we talk about today, such as an electric vehicle fire, is not unique to the United States, right? They're addressing that in Singapore. They're addressing that in Hong Kong. They're addressing that in South America. So a lot of networking happened there. And then those communities of practice are going to continue to kind of flesh out what was discussed in a 2-day session to identify what resources are available, what can be shared, and also what can we glean from our international partners. And ISFSI is going to be part of that training and education community of practice. So we're excited to have you all involved in that, to really network with our global partners on that. So Fire Congress was a great success. It allowed us to have that discussion. And now, obviously, we begin the pick and shovel work, which is, okay, now we've discussed these things, what resources are out there, what gaps are out there, and how we move forward. So we wanted to share that with your listeners. The next thing that the administrator wanted to make sure all of you know about, and I know some of you are inbound to Emmitsburg probably this weekend, but the U.S. Fire Administrator Summit is just a few days away. So if your listeners can't come in person, and that's probably not possible because it's a sellout for the campus, so we don't have any seats, but you can still log in and attend virtually. So we're going to live stream the event that's going to happen on Tuesday, so people can log in from their computer and listen to it. And then afterwards, they can also listen to it. And while they're driving to work or driving around, they can listen to it as a podcast. They could share it within their training environments with their members. But we're going to have a robust discussion about where we are today with the fire and EMS issues in the country. We're going to get updates from a lot of the work groups that were set up through the summit. We'll talk about those. And then we're going to also plan our next steps. Where do we go from here? So ISFSI obviously is a member of the U.S. Fire Administrator Summit work group. So the initial work group identified 6 issues. Cancer, specifically for our firefighters, career and volunteer. The next one, mental health. As we know, sadly, we are seeing more of our brothers and sisters take their own lives from suicide than are dying in the line of duty. So how do we create a culture where we are okay saying we're not okay, and then have culturally competent resources available and clinicians to support our men and women? That starts from day one in recruit school, where we talk about resilience. What do we do as firefighter EMTs, and how do we thrive in this career? The next work group, ISFSI, very active in, is recruitment or retention. We have a lot of agencies struggle to find both career and volunteer firefighter EMTs, but we also have identified many successful programs that are thriving across the country, both career and volunteer, that are finding talented individuals that want to serve. So recruitment or retention has done a lot of work, and that report will be shared at the summit. Next one, codes and standards, is a work group specifically that is looking at that issue. And we're in interesting times in our country because we have a number of communities that have not adopted the most recent fire codes or even the fire code before that. And then more interesting, we have some communities looking to roll back well-established fire codes as they're having discussions about affordable housing. So we still have a fire problem in our country. We're still seeing more than 3,000 civilian fire deaths in our country. So while everybody understands the need for affordable housing, that doesn't mean we should have unsafe housing. And I think all of your members understand the importance of that. The next group that really ties into what we're seeing today, sadly, with the hurricane, is making sure our first responders are prepared for the environmental changes that they're responding to in their communities. So we have places that are getting flooding that have never been flooded before. We are now in a year-round wildfire posture in the United States. So no longer is it a seasonal wildfire response. We still have resources from one end of the country supporting another end of the country. We're seeing mutual aid resources cross state lines more than ever before during wildfire. So how do we prepare our first responder community and equip them for those environmental changes? We think about wildfire, we talk about that, we talk about flooding, we look at hurricanes, but we're also looking at things such as heat. We're seeing communities having excessive heat for extended periods of time that are impacting the first responder community and especially the EMS community. So making sure that we're in that discussion and having our first responders ready. And then the sixth one out of the original group was equity and funding with law enforcement. Congressional Fire Service Institute, which obviously ISFSI is very active in, has taken this one on. And it's not a criticism of the funding that's made available by our elected officials in Washington, D.C. for our law enforcement partners, but really having that same discussion that the fire service has just as great a need as our law enforcement partners. When you look at a brand new fire engine costing $1 million, hoagie sales, pancake breakfasts are just not going to do it anymore. So how do we create equity within our law enforcement funding stream? And again, not taking away what they have, but getting our elected officials to understand this is what it costs us to provide fire and EMS services to our local communities, regardless of if they're career or volunteer. So those were the first 6 groups out of the summit. We're going to do a recap of those as part of the summit next week. But then last year, we also stood up 4 additional work groups. One of those specifically is looking at our EMS community. As all of you know that are listening to this podcast, our EMS calls for service are larger than ever. We're responding to probably more than 60%, if not greater, in many communities is EMS response. We're seeing extended times at our emergency rooms. We're also seeing extended responses for people in crisis. We're seeing extended responses for people having substance abuse issues. So how do we create resources for our EMS providers to serve our communities? So that work group is working on that. They're going to report out. Next one is data. We're in a place now where we need to use data to not only inform our decisions, but also to educate our communities and our elected officials. People want to know what we're doing with the money that they're providing us. And we have to have data available to give them information about not only our call volume, but what does it cost us to deliver that service and what are our gaps in our service? So data is the next one. And I'll also kind of take another rabbit trail on this and remind everybody that next year, the NFIRS system, as you know, it is going to go away. So we're standing up the new NERA system, National Emergency Response Information System. We have a number of beta communities currently testing the system. We're having really good results with what people are seeing, and we're moving forward. So we have another podcast scheduled later on this month. So all your listeners have to do is Google NERIS, National Emergency Response Information System. The previous podcasts that we have are online. They can listen to them. They could also participate in the one coming up. And then also we have a live portal on that webpage that allows people to submit questions. So we're moving forward with NERIS. We're excited about the partnership we have. Department of Homeland Security, Science and Technology is working with us on this. And the contractor that was selected is UL Fire Service Research Institute, ULFSRI, which obviously ISFSI has had a very strong partnership over the years, as does the U.S. Fire Administration. So a little rabbit trail on data, but NERIS is coming. And if you're not aware, Google it and be active in it and be engaged in asking questions. The last 2 items that were added last year's summit, again, ISFSI front and center, emerging threats, electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, and then question mark, what's next? What we know is EV is here. We know lithium-ion batteries are here. We're responding to those incidents. We're doing a lot of research and analysis on how we handle those best. Again, not a U.S. limited issue. It's really a global issue affecting all of us, but making sure that we have a work group looking at not only those issues, but what's coming up next. That work group specifically is having discussions about having our first responder community involved with industry as these new ideas are coming out, so that we talk about fire safety and emergency response before it leaves the showroom and shows up somewhere in our community. So once it's outside that showroom or outside the dealership or outside the store, and when something goes bad, we know who's going to respond, and that's the people listening to this podcast. So that group is very active. And then the last one is cardiac. We added cardiac specifically because we know that cardiac is the main issue of concern for our fire service, both career and volunteer. So we wanted to stand up a specific work group on cardiac. So they're going to be giving their initial report out during the summit. So I know there's a lot there with the summit. Your members have been amazing by being involved in these work groups, and all the proceedings of the summit, both this one coming up, the previous ones, are all on the webpage. So all people have to do is simply Google U.S. Fire Administrator Summit. The proceedings are there, the reports are there, resources are there. And we're glad to share that with you. So those are the things I wanted to kind of share with you from the U.S. Fire Administration perspective. Again, Dr. Lori regrets she can't be here, but I think everybody understands that sometimes duty calls and you have to be on the front lines. But any questions that any of you have about the efforts of the USFA before we switch over to NFA?
No, I was just going to say it's a ton of information, but it's all relevant and good. I do like, something, if, from the Dr. Lori perspective of the whole one voice and bringing everybody together as a fire service. I thought that was an incredible message because, how many times are we, the IFCs doing something for the ISFSI, and everybody's kind of paddling in the same direction, but not collectively. And so having that one voice motto and bringing everybody together, both as a nation, but then also internationally with the World Fire Congress is pretty impressive and great to see. Did you have dates, just for everybody listening? The AFG and the SAFER were reauthorized. When those open up for application periods?
Yeah, those dates are to be announced. So here's what's interesting. We're in what's called the continuing resolution right now. So while the federal government is back in business, we're back in business under continuing resolution, which does not approve a full budget for us. So what I would encourage people to do is obviously monitor the social media from the FEMA Assistance to Firefighter Grants Program and obviously USFA social media. As soon as those announcements are out, we're going to push it out far and wide to make sure people apply for grants. But here's what I will tell you as a former grant reviewer and currently the liaison for AFG grants, don't wait until the announcement comes out. There's nothing wrong with people to look at last year's NOFO, which is a notice of funding opportunity, take a look at what grant they're interested in, start to collect the information for their grant application. The other thing that is totally fine is if one of your neighboring fire departments was successful last year, give them a call, reach out to them, have coffee with them and say, hey, can we talk about your grant? Can we talk about what you asked for? Can we talk about what you submitted? And they can even share with you their grant application. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. So don't wait for the last minute. What I know from my experience with AFG grant is about 25% of those grants are submitted on the last day in the last hours. And most of those are missing something, right? So start now, start collecting all the information, just kind of put aside, if you will, a project room and start checking off what the information is that you're going to need. You could even start working on your narrative now based on last year's notice of funding opportunity. And that way, when this year's come out, look at it again to see if there's any changes, make an adjustment to what you want to submit. And the other thing I always suggest is have one or two other people take a look at it before you submit it. And they don't need to be in the fire service. They just need to understand grants. So if you have a checklist of 9 items that have to be in that grant, make sure that evaluator identifies all 9 of those and that you've covered them, right? You don't want to be missing something that's essential because then your application's not going to move forward. So take the time to do it now. The best advice, one of the volunteer chiefs that we've worked with has done is he takes it to somebody at the high school that teaches writing. And he has the writing instructor at the high school review the grant, basically scores it out for him ahead of time saying, I think you need to beef this up. This area is great. So again, think about how creative you want to be, but you don't want to miss out on a grant opportunity just because you missed something, right? Because if you miss a box that's required, it makes it easy for the process. You're just not going to move forward. The other thing that's interesting to share, and again, ISFSI is active in the grant process and on the grants committee and also in the grants evaluation process. But I believe it's one of the most successful grants in the federal government for this reason. It is completely managed by the American Fire Service. So each grant that makes it to panel is reviewed by 3 of your peers. So those are 3 peer volunteer firefighters. Those are 3 peer career firefighters. Those are members of ISFSI, IFC, Black Chief Officers. The list goes on and on, North American Fire Training Directors. But all of those groups are submitting names of people to review grants, and they're reviewing your grants. They're not hired to be there. They're there because they have a passion for the fire service. They're giving up a week of their time to review grants. And each grant that makes it to panel is reviewed by 3 of your peers. They won't be people from your department. They won't be people from your county or your state. They're going to truly be your peers. They're going to review your grant and make a decision on how well your grant was written. They're going to give it a score. and then it moves forward in the process. So don't wait for the last minute and keep applying for the grant. So great question.
I appreciate that. You always I tell people all the time, just, stay aware of what's going on in the fire service, because you don't want to miss an opportunity that's going to, show itself, and you put it to the side. The next thing you know, what you thought was 2 days later, you're going to get to something 6 weeks later. It's like, well, hey, I was going to do that, and it just slides by. Damon or Anthony, you guys got anything else for USFA before we switch over to National Fire Academy stuff?
Yes, just for our listeners, of what Eric's just said in regards to reaching out to your neighboring department that was successful, it works. A couple of years ago, City of Oakland Fire Department, we were successful with receiving a $27 million SAFER grant. And our colleagues right next door in Berkeley Fire Department, they reached out. I gave a copy of our grant, and I'm proud to say they were successful in receiving an $8 million grant this last go around. That's not to say that because of Oakland they were successful, but I'm sure it helped in some capacity. In the last part, a lot of great programs as you just mentioned, from the new NEAR system to emerging threats to data and so forth, and just hitting on that data real quick, because I know that's a baby to the doctor. We got to get beyond just simple computation numbers in terms of calls we go on, EMS calls versus fire calls, and really look at other aspects of data that we can use to get those future needs and wants for our respective organizations. Thank you, sir.
Your comment about.
Okay, so let's. I'm sorry, Tony, you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, listen, all the things you guys are doing, it's staggeringly, not only important, but staggeringly a huge lift, and that's unbelievable. But, Des talked about the grants and stuff. I mean, in North Hudson, I believe we have used about 7 or 8 grants to hire people, and we get to hire a lot of vets, which is really, really, really cool. But the other thing you talked about, the emerging issues, the fire service world it's just changing at such a rapid pace, and you just look at the chemical fire in Atlanta. Of course, you look at the lithium ion stuff, and listen, we, on the lithium ion side, we're going to figure this out. We this is what we do, and everybody, along with the ISFSI, like spearheading this movement to get all this done is that's what the fire service does the best, and bringing the people from international is just, these are global problems as well, but the other end of it is we have to educate firefighters that they're not going into daddy's fire and grandpa's fire. You just had to look at that place in Atlanta, and you know what? You got to know where to make an entry and where to just say, oh my God, what are we getting into here? Again, we're, leading the way, and thank you very much for your dedication. And last question, the first part of this, was that all off the top of your head?
I have just bullet points, so we're rolling here. Yeah, it's what I do, Chief.
I know that. You are amazing, brother.
It's all right here on a little piece of scratch paper.
That's awesome.
God bless you.
Natural.
Absolutely.
I'll share with you. I used to do it off of the back of a business card, but then when I hit 50, I needed glasses, so I can't do it off the back of a business card anymore.
That's cool. I love it. All right, we'll switch gears. We'll talk NFA, and you appreciate the update from the USFA. So, everybody knows National Fire Academy, Pittsburgh, Maryland. If you have not been there, you are completely missing out on an incredible opportunity. Anytime I get to do a class for anybody in the fire service, whether it's a recruit class, whether it's a chief officer class, or whatever it might be throughout the country, I always say there's 2 things you have to do in the fire service. One's FDIC, and just because it's the biggest show out there, and you're going to see if you need it in the fire service, it's there. And I say the other one is the National Fire Academy, because everything in the fire service is there, from the library to the classes to the incredible campus. And so I would just turn over to you, kind of what's new at the National Fire Academy, what's going on, and kind of start from there.
Yeah, so thank you, and it's a great segue. So as I mentioned, one of the 4 stars under the U.S. Fire Administration creation was fire and now EMS training. So we're excited to be here to support state, local, tribal, and territorial fire and EMS partners and allied professionals. And, who are allied professionals? That could be law enforcement, that could be emergency management, that could be county health that handles hazmat. It could include our wildfire partners. So on an annual basis, the National Fire Academy reaches about 80,000 students a year. So they're not all coming to Emmitsburg, Maryland, because we realize that not everybody is able to travel. Not everybody's work will allow them to get away. Not everybody has the opportunity to travel. And we're also very honest that we're not the only training game in town. We know that our state and local partners offer amazing training opportunities. I think what sets us apart is really the campus experience. So, and what I mean by that is, and I'll start on the campus and then we'll move to kind of our academic partners and then our state partners to kind of slice this up. But campus is historic in nature. We're on what used to be called St. Joseph's College in Emmitsburg, Maryland, about 15 minutes south of Gettysburg. Just as America Burning was released, St. Joseph's College, which was an all-girls school, was merging with Mount St. Mary's University. So available on the real estate market, believe it or not, was a college campus. The federal government met with the group and the college, and we said, we're interested in this property, and we've been there ever since. So some of our buildings on campus are pre-Civil War. The Army of the Potomac actually stayed on the campus before the battle in Gettysburg. And then after the battle in Gettysburg, the injured from both the North and the South were treated in a field hospital that was set up within the chapel on campus. So a lot of history from the Civil War standpoint. So that gives you an idea about the buildings. But, through our amazing facilities division, everything is current. So we have heating and air conditioning. We have contemporary fire and life safety systems. We have Wi-Fi. So everything you would expect to find at any kind of a college campus, you will find on our campus. So we've updated the campus, but yet we do so under historic preservation. So we maintain the buildings as they were on the outside, but inside they all have all the modern amenities. So a single dormitory room with a single bath shower. You control your own air conditioning. You have cable TV and all those different things. So all the creature comforts that you would expect when you're traveling to a college type facility, we have. We're very honest. We're not the Hyatt. We're not the Marriott. So we don't have room service. We don't have a concierge, but we do have a talented staff that is there to support the students that we're training. So on an annual basis, we provide training, specifically residential training, to about 7,000 members of the Career and Volunteer Fire Service, specifically attending National Fire Academy classes. We share the campus with what used to be called FEMA's Emergency Management Institute, which is now the National Disaster and Emergency Management University. So they just changed their name on October 1st. So they bring in about 5,000 students on campus, and we have a great opportunity to provide professional development opportunities for our current and future leaders. So we, by law, do not replicate what's available at the local level. So you're not going to come to us to be a fire instructor one. You're not going to come to get your fire officer one. We're providing advanced classes that are not available to local level. So that could be a 2-week hands-on fire investigations class that we do in partnership with ATF for fire and law enforcement investigators. That could be our community risk reduction series, our youth fire center programs, our wildland urban interface community risk reduction program. So that includes evacuation programs and setting up for, if you will, how do you manage a wildfire incident if it happens. That also includes attending our command and control classes, which are in our incident simulation lab in Building S. So we're able to bring in digital images for our incident commanders to learn how to be better incident commanders using the NIM system. Then we transition over and we'll focus a little bit more on executive fire officer, managing officer. But really, we have about 300 different course offerings on campus, and we bring students in for up to 1 week or 2 weeks of duration. And then the plus to coming to campus is that you don't have to pay to attend the National Fire Academy. Your federal taxes are covering that cost. If you're selected to attend, we'll reimburse you for your travel. So if you're flying from Alaska or Guam, we'll pick up your airfare. If you're driving in from New Jersey, we'll reimburse you for your mileage. Your only cost truly is your time and buying a meal ticket on campus. So everything is covered by us. The other benefit of our campus programs is not only you in a class with your peers from across the United States, we also do allow international students to attend National Fire Academy classes. So you could be sitting in an incident command class with fire leaders from Tokyo that are here to learn their skills and sharpen their skills. The same is true in our leadership classes. You could be in there with an international student, but you could be sitting next to somebody from FDNY or Los Angeles City, and you're from a community that has maybe 10,000 residents, and you're the fire chief or the deputy chief or a volunteer chief. So that's the unique part of the campus, is truly bringing people together from every corner of the country and even the globe. And also, as part of that, you're able to have discussions on our campus that you may not be able to have at home. And what I mean by that is, if we're bringing together leaders, we have a 1-week class we call New Chief Officer. These are men and women that have recently been promoted to chiefs levels. It's a 6-day class, people from across the country that have very candid discussions about what they're seeing in their fire departments, what they're seeing in their workforce, and some of the challenges they're seeing. It's really a way to learn, a way to network, and a way to create a peer group that allows you to continue to stay in touch with people with that you've been in class once you leave. And I say you're able to have discussions you can't have at home. If I brought this class to any community across the country, which we can do, everybody in that class is going to be from that state. That discussion may not be as frank and honest as that person wants it to be, because you don't know if somebody another in the room might be texting one of your coworkers saying, "You won't believe what your chief just said," or "I can't believe this is happening in your department." So you kind of lose that ability to have frank discussions and really get that true professional development. So that's one of the things that we strive to do, is to have a safe place to learn and a safe place to have discussions. So that's just one example. And again, in all of our programs, really it's bringing people across the country together. Like I've said and I've seen, if you've been to one fire department, you've been to one fire department. I would say if you've been to one shift in one fire department, you've been to one shift in one fire department, because A, B, C, and D may do things totally different, and that's okay. But the ability to network and see what's happening, to talk about what's happening, really sets us apart, and we're excited about that. So residential classes, again, no charge to attend. We'll pick up your airfare. Right now is open enrollment until the 15th of the month. So if you want to come next year, please apply. We did move to a quarterly enrollment window, which is, I think, a little bit easier for our people to plan in advance because of staffing and scheduling challenges. So 4 times a year, we open up enrollment. So that's on campus. I'll kind of add 2 things, and I kind of asterisk these. One is managing officer. The other one is executive fire officer program. So managing officer is a 2-year professional development opportunity for our company officers. So that could be a captain, a battalion chief, somebody that is in a management role. So that could be the manager of training, manager of services, operations manager, but they're learning how to manage people. So, how do we address the interpersonal workings of the fire department? As all of you know on this call, and your listeners know, the most influential person probably in each fire department is the company officer. And that's not taking away from our 5, our 4, or 3 bugle chiefs, but who has the biggest impact with the men and women delivering the service is our company officers. So giving those folks the ability to learn about management leadership, about themselves, and managing officer is a very, very good program. What we did earlier this year, we took managing officer offline, and we did that on purpose because managing officer needs a refresh. It doesn't need just a few things addressed. We've run it for a number of years. It's getting tired, and we want to make sure it's meeting the needs of today's fire service. So the analogy I'll use is a fire truck. We can't refurb it anymore. We can't send it to the body shop. We need a new engine. So what we decided to do is take it offline. We're building a new managing officer program from scratch. We're going to take all the great things from the old program and bring it over to the new one. But we also know that there's things in the new one that we need to add. And one of those, as we mentioned earlier, is data. Our managing officers, our company officers need to understand how to analyze data, how to present data, and how to report data. So we're going to add that into there. And also focusing a lot on, if you will, the people skills. How do we interact with our people? How do we lead our people? How do we develop our people? So managing officer is going to be offline for at least a year, if not 2, because we want to take the time to do it right, because that's what you expect from us. And then we'll bring in a beta and start running it again when we're ready. But just excited about that. And then executive fire officer is for our chief officer level. Requirement is a bachelor's degree to get into the program. We allow 150 applicants every year. Last year, we opened up the application for what we thought would be 2 months or until we receive 500 applications. We received 500 applications within 14 days. So those are 500 qualified applications. We brought in a screening panel of peers to review all those applications, and we have 150 future and current fire and EMS leaders starting their 2-year journey through what we call EFO. And then, of course, we have some previous cohorts also still running through EFO. EFO is a 2-year program. It used to be 4 years, but what we heard from our stakeholders was 4 years is just too long. And the other thing is by the time they were finishing up a 4-year program, they were ready to retire. The other thing we heard from our partners, both the fire service and our elected officials, so city managers and mayors, was the program should be higher and harder. And what we said is, what do you mean? They go, it should be at the graduate level. So what we did is we brought together our stakeholders. We redesigned executive fire officer. We took all the good things from the previous program. We brought them over to the new program, but we also built out what we needed to do. And that new EFO program is both on campus and virtual. So you're not here for 2 years, you're in and out. You're also taking virtual classes. It's at the graduate level, but it focuses on 3 things. It focuses on the fire leader understanding them, understanding self, the fire service leader understanding their organization. That's the second pillar. And then the third pillar is that fire service leader not only understanding themselves and their organization, but understanding the community that they serve. So those 3 pillars are woven throughout. We're seeing really good feedback on what we're doing with EFO. As I mentioned, it is recognized at the graduate level. We're the only program within DHS that has that designation. And we're excited to have a very robust program that is in high demand. And you're going to see probably an announcement that we're going to be accepting applications in the fall for people that want to be in the next cohort. So again, keep an eye on our social media platform, but we'll announce that. Once we receive 500 qualified applications, we're going to shut it off. So again, don't wait for the last minute because you might miss out. And we're excited about that. So that gives you kind of a thumbnail, I think, about our resident programs. And let me pause and see if you have any questions on those.
No, it's a ton of good information. Again, I think to the resident programs, the other part of that I think having gone through up there through the EFO program and other classes, week and 2 week classes and that sort of stuff. I know Damon and Anthony speak as well. It's that immersive learning environment, right? Like you're in class throughout the day and you're having great conversations, and then those conversations translate to a continuation of that conversation at dinner, at the pub, at the picnic table, whatever it might be. And so for those week or 2 weeks where you're at the NFA, you really can wrap your head around some projects or some thoughts or concerns you have in the organization, because you're not distracted by somebody walking in your office or an email. Yeah, you're still working, and I think all of us know that the work doesn't stop when you leave, but you're around people that have either faced a similar problem or are facing a similar problem, and you can create that network of peers. I can call Damon and be like, hey, Damon, I got a issue going on at my place. And, it's going to get back in the fire service because we're all one tight family, but it's going to take a couple of weeks versus a couple of minutes. But to your point, I think it's 100% true. Getting away from your own little area, getting around other people, realizing that, yeah, you're probably facing some of the same issues. However you faced those issues before, creating that professional network is just so key beyond the normal curriculum that's developed. So, Damon or Anthony, I don't know what your guys' thoughts on some of that stuff were.
Yeah, just adding on to that for our listeners out there, when you go to the National Fire Academy, you're around other like-minded individuals. A lot of great ideas and projects and programs other departments across the world are engaging in. So you pick up on those ideas, get to ask questions, and then bring them back to your home organization. So it's always a benefit. One of the major benefits of going to the National Fire Academy is the networking and discussing ideas that you can bring back to your home organization and make your organization that much more greater.
Anthony,
yeah, and what I'll add to that, and then Tony, I saw you come off mute, but not only are you there with your peers from across the country, you have similarities, but also differences, right? Your staffing may be different, your apparatus may be different, your community may be different, but you're all trying to serve a community with fire and EMS services. So how do you do that in challenging environments and in challenging times? So after class, having a cold beverage with your peers, having dinner with your peers, and continuing those discussions. But what I always tell people is those discussions don't have to stop when you leave campus. Stay in touch, create that network through social media. Now it's easier now more than ever. The other thing that's a great resource for us on campus is our library, the Learning Resource Center. We have the largest fire EMS and emergency management library in the world on campus that's available for our students and also to all of your listeners off campus. So we have over 100,000 publications during the pandemic. Our amazing library staff digitized 90% of our collection, which means it's in a PDF. So all you have to do is go on our library webpage, see what the document is. If it's a PDF, you can basically download it right there. If it's a book that you're looking for that we have, we'll send it to your local library free of charge. You pick it up there. You send it back when you're done, no charge for you there. And again, we want to make sure we're serving you both on campus and off. So just some other things that happen on campus. And then the other thing that I'll just share about the campus that I didn't mention, I talked about the chapel in its past and the history it had at St. Joseph's College. But that chapel has a history to all of us today because it's known as the National Fallen Firefighters Chapel. So I see our campus as hallowed ground. We honor our fallen firefighters on a daily basis by learning how to be better fire service leaders, how to be better incident managers, how do we be better people so that they didn't die in vain. We learned from how they died, and we want to see what we could do to change. But hallowed ground, the national memorials on campus. We have the 9/11 memorial, and then we also have the Walk of Honor, where we honor firefighters who died before the national memorial was created, state by state, brick by brick, where we talk about who they are. So again, a really special place, and just an honor to be there. So Tony, I'll pivot over to you because I saw you had a question.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention, what a resource that you guys are, and it's it's just like the USFA. It's just staggering at the resources and the information, the people, and here's something that I find really embarrassing. I've never been there.
Really?
I have never been to the National Fire Academy. Road trip.
Yep.
Road trip time. But keep up the good work, from, Dennis O'Neill, who was a very good friend of mine down here, and you, a very good friend of mine, Jersey, baby.
Yeah,
you can say if you've never been there, Anthony.
Yep, I'm very proud of my Jersey roots. Also, 30 years in Oregon, so I've got a lot of folks that are listening from Oregon. So that helped shape me, and really honored to serve as the superintendent currently, working for all of you. And that's really our mindset. Our focus is the student. We're a student-centric organization. Everything we do supports the student. That's our staff, our 400 instructors that work for us is that student experience. So I know we're pushing up close to time, so let me cover three last things really quick. One is off-campus deliveries. Through our partnerships with the state fire training directors across the country, we're reaching about 25 to 30,000 students a year every year off campus, and what I like to call as close to home as possible. That includes career volunteer firefighter EMTs that are taking 2-day classes, 6-day classes that the state is hosting for us. So the state picks the classes off our menu. They tell us when they want us to be there, where they want us to be, and what dates they want us to be. We provide the instructors all the materials. They provide the students. So if any of your listeners want to host an NFA class, contact your state training director. Tell them you want to host. You're going to put butts in seats and get it filled up, and we're going to show up and do that. So we continue to lean out in our off-campus deliveries. We also have a partnership with more than 100 colleges and universities through a program we call FESI, Fire and Emergency Services in Higher Education. As all of us know on this call, and especially ISFSI, training is one part of an important stool. So it's training, education, experience, right? That's what makes that stool strong. So we have a partnership with about 100 college universities that offer associates and bachelor's programs in fire and emergency services. So we've set up a national curriculum model for them to use. That's worked out really well. We're in the process of updating that. We're also in the process of adding a master's degree component to that. And also after the first of the year, we're going to work on a high school curriculum program, because as we look at recruitment or retention, we have a lot of programs, either what we call grow your own, departments that are bringing in youth to learn about fire and EMS opportunities, or high schools that are actually working with local fire departments to do that. So we want to create a resource for them. And that connects those men and women with the National Fire Academy. So we're reaching thousands through that partnership. And then the last thing I'll just say is that we're always looking for instructors. And I know that ISFSI members are super busy with their local training commitments. But if you ever want to work for the National Fire Academy, just go on our webpage, look at National Fire Academy instructor. It tells you how to be one of our instructors. But we have about 400 currently talented individuals, some retired, some active, who love to share their knowledge, skills, and abilities with others. So we're always looking, just like it in any sport, right? Freshman, JV, varsity. We're always looking to make sure we got people on the bench that want to teach. And even if you're actively working and you can't come to campus, teach 2-day classes for us on weekends. So I'll just make a shameless plug for NFA instructors as part of your webcast today. So those are the things I wanted to share, and see what questions you might have.
No, it's good stuff. It's always whenever you get up there, it's always an experience coming on campus, seeing everything and just seeing everybody, getting the nervousness of that first day of like, hey, am I going to know anybody in class, or probably not, or what's this going to look like? And literally by the end of the week or 2-week session, you made some of your best friends that are going to, I just remember, the first time I went up there, still texting and talking with people that I literally didn't know from Adam first day, because you're just in that immersive environment. So I appreciate you coming on today, Superintendent Gablix. It's been an impressive amount of information for us today, for the viewers and everybody in the audience today. If you're an American firefighter, if you're overseas, whatever, it doesn't matter. American firefighters, get in on this National Fire Academy. It's an incredible opportunity we have here through the USFA to have this educational training opportunity afforded to us. And like you said, the price couldn't be better. And all you're paying for is your meals. So, get on there, get that application in, and get out there. Because like I said, the education is second to none, and the opportunity to network, learn, advance your fire service career, you'll definitely benefit from it. So, Damon, any final thoughts?
Just 2 quick points. Number one, your federal tax dollars help fund the National Fire Academy. So as Brian mentioned, take advantage of it. And as professional firefighters using this, borrowing from the military, probably one of the most complex and dangerous professions in the world. They value education, and we as professional firefighters, we need to continue, and I underscore the word continue, valuing education, so that we can better serve our communities across the United States and the world, for that matter.
Totally agree. Anthony, final thoughts?
Well, it's always about, education and training, and, there's and experience as well. But, as Vinny Dunn used to say, it's good to be lucky. It's better to be lucky than smart, but if you're smart, you got a better chance of being lucky. I think that all those things come together. And again, we're preaching to the choir here, and to the people probably watching this show, but it's an idea that, everybody watching this show should, preach to the choir to somebody else, and bring people into what's happening, in the fire service. There's no time when it's not time to train in the fire service, and educate yourself, and again, there's so many resources out there, the world's changing, and we're trying to change with it. But if you're not paying attention, it's going to pass you by.
Yeah, 100%. I can promise you, there's a class for you at the National Fire Academy with, like you said, over 300 offerings. There is something for every firefighter out there, from fire investigation to executive leadership to command and control to building construction. There's something there for you. So get on the NFA's website, check it out, get those applications in, open through October 15th. So you still got a couple weeks to get those applications in and get yourself up to Emmitsburg, Maryland. Enjoy the beautiful grounds of the National Fire Academy, and remember, October 7th, FDIC opens up for pre-registration. So make sure you get on that website as well. So you got a busy 2 weeks ahead of yourself. You're going to be signed up for FDIC and you're going to be signed up for the NFA. So no reason that you shouldn't be attending both of those in 2025. So we will see everybody at FDIC 2025 and hopefully catch up with you guys at the NFA at the summit next week. So everybody, thanks for tuning in and be safe out there.
Thank you.